Tyran Stokes' recruitment is coming down to the wire, and the Wildcats should feel pretty good about themselves in a toss-up race.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to be talking about Tyran Stokes. That's right, his recruitment, according to insiders, is a toss-up race between the Wildcats and two other big-time schools. Going to break that down for you on today's show, as well as tip-off times. Ladies and gentlemen, we are finally getting tip-off times for a good chunk of the non-conference slate, and an exhibition game that is now less than a month away. Could not be more excited. And then to wrap up the show, we're going to preview Kentucky versus South Carolina this weekend. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why the Wildcats are going to win in Columbia. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be that difficult. Might be a hot take. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcasts, I would also appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So Tyran Stokes is a toss-up right now between Kentucky, Kansas, and Oregon. That is per Travis Branham of 24/7 Sports. Kansas, Kentucky, and Oregon. Now, we have sat here on the show over the last, month or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, and said, look, we wouldn't necessarily, just based on the reporting, feel confident in predicting Tyran Stokes to go to Kentucky, put the crystal ball in, stamp it, it's done, ship it. We're going to get the number 1 overall player in the 2026 class. But I think if you're a Kentucky fan right now, or even if you are the staff itself, I think you should feel pretty good about where things stand with Stokes, because all the way down to the final weeks of this recruitment, you have been in the mix. And you haven't just been in the mix. For a large portion of that, insiders were saying that you were in the lead. Now, it wasn't necessarily a large lead, but Kentucky was the school to watch, according to a lot of different sources out there, right? Now, it's a toss-up between Oregon and Kansas. Kansas is a threat. Oregon is a legitimate threat because Stokes might want to stay out west. Who knows? I don't know. But what we can tell you is, according to reporting, Kentucky is still in this, and the decision is coming soon. This is per Travis Branham of 24/7 Sports. You can go find this over on 24/7 Sports' website. He said, as reported 2 weeks ago, 2026's top player, Tyran Stokes, took his official visit to Oregon last weekend, which has further reshaped his recruitment. Kentucky solidified itself this summer to be in the mix with Stokes, but Kansas has also proven to be a threat in this battle. Following Stokes' visit to Oregon, they are now the 3rd threat for his talents. Things with Louisville have gradually quieted down. Womp womp. One other school has had rumors of a swirling of a potential visit, I should say, and that is Gonzaga. While the Zags are showing interest, it remains up in the air if that visit will ever come to fruition. Talking with various sources, a decision is expected to come in the early signing period window. There is some talk that the decision could come early in October. Right now, this recruitment is classified as a toss-up between Kansas, Kentucky, and Oregon. Kansas, Kentucky, Oregon. I want to reiterate again, if you are a Kentucky fan watching this and you are hearing about where this recruitment is going, how is it going down? This has been one of the more, I think, closeted, quiet, behind closed doors type recruitments I have seen the Wildcats be involved in a hot minute. And I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing, because every single step of the way, we have heard that Kentucky is in this thing, isn't just kind of there, right? They're not just a part of the pack. No, they are legitimately a part of this race, leading it for a large portion of this recruitment. So at least the samples, or the little bits of information, I should say, that we have gotten they've been extremely positive, and they have yet to shift in any other direction, right? We're not saying Kansas is the leader as things wind down. We're not saying Louisville is in this, thank goodness. We're not saying Arkansas is in this. We're not saying Indiana's in this. We're not saying Duke or UConn or any of these schools. It's Kansas and it's Oregon. And I can guarantee you, if he wants to go to a Nike school, ladies and gentlemen, we can put down the money for that. Absolutely, Kentucky can put down the money for that. I'm not quite sure what the thought process is with Oregon, other than that he might just want to stay out west. I can understand that. Not what I would do personally. I would come to Kentucky because, frankly, I'm biased. But yeah, I do think that it's interesting that the Ducks have made their way here towards the end of the recruitment. I know USC was another place that he also visited, which is interesting. I really do view this in my mind, though, as a Kentucky versus Kansas battle, at least just vibes, based off vibes. Now, again, I'm reading the same reporting you guys are. I'm talking to the same people you guys are. I think that this is, at the end of the day, a battle between two schools that can definitely lay out the money, that are two prestigious universities when it comes to basketball, two of the winningest programs of all time, literally. I'm going to be fascinated to see how this goes, because if Stokes does commit to Kentucky, that's a large share of the NIL that Kentucky has to divvy out for next year's recruiting class, and frankly, probably impacts what they do in the transfer portal, and it reshapes what we think about this roster and what we think about next year's team. Because as I've continued to say on the show, hey, a lot of guys are probably coming back, right? I know Ortega and Aberdeen and Quaintance, those three big pieces, they're probably going to go. But unless somebody completely drops the ball, the most of this roster is going to probably perform well to okay enough to say, hey, let's go back one more year, or let's do this for our junior or our senior year, and let's make this thing run. I am fascinated to see what Jalen Lowe does, because look, think about this. If you are able to get Jalen Lowe to come back, if you're able to get Brandon Garrison to come back, Malachi Marino to return, those are two McDonald's All-Americans at center. You have a what might be an All-SEC type point guard, a potential freshman All-American in Tyran Stokes, almost definitely going to be a freshman All-American. You have youth, you have experience, you have talent, you have a really nice blend, and as we've continued to say on the show, I think that's the recipe for success in college basketball. If you want to make a run in the NCAA tournament, that's kind of what you have to do. So we'll keep an eye on this. Obviously, Tyran Stokes, Kentucky, Kansas, and Oregon are the three final schools that you need to be looking out for. We'll continue to update you as more information comes in. All right, I want to talk about these game times that have been announced for Kentucky. And I really just want to use this as an opportunity to talk about how excited I am for some of these games, because I really do think this season is going to be so fun. Before we dive into that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. And Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down for Kentucky. Let's go in a different direction. I'll say Mark Pope delivered in a big way this past week, because he has been absolutely killing it, providing updates for us on social media with practice. He's been posting clips. He's been talking about how excited he is for this upcoming year. He's in these different hype videos. He's really delivering these incredible speeches to the players about how much they need to love this, and how it's just really nice to have a coach that really is pouring his heart and soul into what he's doing here at the University of Kentucky. It's clear that he loves this stuff. He came through. Obviously, he's coming through for Kentucky in practice. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know this isn't a fluke. fluke. This is who Mark Pope is. This is the real deal, and he is on a tear. And just like with Mark Pope delivering for Kentucky, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order. You can stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. It's a little bit of a weird setup today. Obviously, I'm not at home in the studio, but we will continue to keep it pushing. We talked about Tyran Stokes. We talked about how I'm really confident where Kentucky stands, I should say, with the number one overall player in the class. Let's shift the focus to this year. Pause for water, because I am indeed a thirsty boy, as usual. All right, game times have been announced for a decent chunk of the non-conference slate, and I just want to use this as an opportunity to talk about how excited I am for this schedule, man. We are less than a month. We are less than 1 month, guys. Wrap your mind around it. Less than a month away from Friday, October 24th, your exhibition game against the Purdue Boilermakers. Pretty much, I think, according to almost every major outlet out there, the number one overall team heading into this season. I think a lot of people would say it's Purdue, it's Houston, it's Florida, it's UConn, it's Kentucky, it's Duke, it's all of these different teams, St. John's, Michigan. But Purdue might have the most complete roster in America. At the very least, the most complete starting five. You slide Trey Kaufman-Renn up to the 4. You get Oscar Clough at the 5, right? You have Braden Smith coming back, which for some reason every Kentucky fan online and their mother thought Kentucky was going to get in the transfer portal. Never really understood that. But anyway, one of, if not the best point guard in the country. One of, if not the best power forward in the country. Well, Fletcher Lawyer is back, by the way. I believe, one of the best centers in the country. Raved about Oscar Clough while he was out, I believe, South Dakota State. It was before this. This is a really, really good Purdue team. I'll just go ahead and tell you guys this. Jaden Quaintance is not going to be playing in this game. Almost definitively. I would be shocked if he was playing in this game. Kentucky's probably going to struggle in this one. Now, I don't know if they'll lose, because Purdue might have some rust as well. But I think it's going to be a very, very, very tough game. No duh, it's the preseason number one overall team. This game's being played at 6 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. I am so excited to get to watch this with you guys, to get to recap it here on Kentucky. I have been craving a post-game live stream for months, and I hate the fact that we have not been able to get one. Frankly, actually, I kind of hate the fact that we ended the season and I had to record. I couldn't go live. I had to record because I was on the road producing some different things with Locked On, which was a blast. I can't wait to do that again. But I am very excited to get to discuss this game at length with you guys whenever it comes around. As of this recording, we are less than a month out, and I could not be more excited. The next game that has been announced, Tuesday, November 18th. This one's going to be at a neutral site against Michigan State. This one's airing at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. The Spartans, one of the better teams in America. I'm curious to see what Tom Izzo does with his roster after losing some important backcourt pieces. I think Michigan State's still going to be pretty good, though. This should be a fun contest. Wednesday, November 26th versus Tennessee Tech. This one's at 7 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Really excited about the fact that most of these games are all before 8 p.m. because far too often last year we had these 9 p.m. Eastern time tip-offs that made me want to pull my hair out because we were up past midnight talking about the game. It'd be nice to be able to actually get a little bit of rest for once, I think, and I think Big Blue Nation would agree with that. Unfortunately, this next game is at 9:30 Eastern on ESPN, and that is Tuesday, December 2nd, the SEC-ACC Challenge against the North Carolina Tar Heels. This game will be fascinating because I have no idea what to make of North Carolina. Caleb Wilson's going to have to be a dog for them. And I don't necessarily know how that matchup's going to go against a player like Mo Diabate. or Jaden Quains, who I would assume is playing at least to some degree by this point in the schedule. Carolina is a good squad. I don't know how good, but this should be a very competitive game. This is the latest game, by the way. The funny thing about this is it's the latest game on Tuesday in the SEC ACC Challenge. Now, obviously, there's a slate of games on Wednesday as well, but this is the latest. This is the very last one at the end of Tuesday, which I find interesting. A game that I'm going to be at 3 days later on Friday, December 5th. This one in Bridgestone Arena against Gonzaga. This is at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. I will be at this game. If you are there, hit me up. I cannot wait to see the Cats in person. This one should be a lot of fun. Gonzaga still very, very good. Obviously going to be good again offensively. How good are they going to be overall as a team? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. They've got some new pieces in. They're struggling to get some more pieces in right now. As is Carolina, by the way. I want to point that out. Kentucky was able to get their Croatian sensation in this year pretty smoothly. And it's been a little bit more difficult, I think, for some other teams to get some kids cleared, which has been very interesting to note. Thank you, Kentucky. Tuesday, December 9th, NC Central at 7 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Saturday, December 13th versus Indiana, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. I am so glad this is on the Prime ESPN channel because I think this game will be cinema. I think both of these teams will be able to score at a very high clip, pretty efficient clip, I might add, and this one's probably going to go down to the wire. I would not be shocked if Kentucky lost this game. I'm not predicting them to lose. In fact, I would assume that they win, but this game and the Carolina game scare me in a way that I don't know. We shouldn't be glossing over them, I should say. And then the final game here that has been announced in terms of time, this one in Atlanta. I believe this is the CBS Sports Classic, December 20th on Saturday, St. John's at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And that one's going to be airing, obviously, on CBS. I'm a little confused as to why this one's so early. I would have rather had the later game in the day. I can't remember the two teams playing after, but St. John's filling in for UCLA in the CBS Sports Classic, obviously, this year. This one should be another very, very good game. Obviously, it's Pope Patina. We talked about this with Isaac Shade on the most recent episode of the show. This should be cinema as well for Kentucky. Very excited to see how this one goes. And those are the games. Again, only one past 8, and that being the 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time tip against North Carolina. Let's see, 3 of these games, on ESPN. Michigan State, North Carolina, and Indiana. 1 on CBS, 1 on ESPN2. That's Gonzaga on December 5th. And then the SEC Network for Purdue, NC Central, and Tennessee Tech. I cannot wait to see what time Louisville game's going to be and some of the rest of Kentucky's games here in the non-con slate as we get closer and closer to the start of the season. I am fired up about this thing. Speaking of fired up, I think Kentucky's going to beat South Carolina this weekend with Cutter Boley at quarterback because he's now the starter. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why this happens in just a little bit. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether I'm watching my team or just keeping an eye on my fantasy lineup, which I'm doing pretty often. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get a smart categorization of your spending. You can finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we talked about Stokes. We talked about the schedule. Going to be tough for Kentucky. And another game that I think is going to be difficult is South Carolina this weekend here on the road in Columbia. Pause for water again. Apologies. I think Kentucky's going to win this game. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why here really quickly. First and foremost, I think Kentucky is going to be able to establish the ground game pretty easily, I think, at various points in this one. Kentucky is way more effective on the ground than South Carolina is at stopping rushing attacks. Kentucky's rushing offense ranks 22nd nationally right now with 214 plus yards per game, averaging 5.1 yards per attempt. That's also 30th nationally, Dante Dawe, Seth McGowan, those guys are tearing it up right now. I am really impressed with how those 2 guys have performed through the first few weeks of the season. It's a tandem. It's not just one guy. It's a legitimate 1-2 punch. In contrast here, South Carolina's rushing defense is really struggling. They're allowing over 182 rushing yards per game. That's 95th nationally. They struggled against Missouri at various spots. I think they're going to struggle here. This mismatch here, I think, is in Kentucky's favor. The stats show it. I think if you go watch these teams, it shows it. South Carolina is injured in the trenches right now. They're not as good in the trenches as we assumed they would be heading into the season. Kentucky's running backs are going to be able to control the game, and they're going to be able to move the chains. A young quarterback on the road in, I think, his first true SEC road start. I can't remember if Cutter I don't think he started the Texas game last year. He might have. I might be misremembering that. But Kentucky's offense is going to be able to do exactly what they want in this game. And that's control the tempo, and it's run the ball, hit your tight ends, and maybe hit some chunk plays downfield, which Kentucky, whenever they're throwing the ball really far down the field quite often. It's just not really generating a ton of success. It did against Eastern Michigan at various points. But Kentucky's offense is going to, I think, hit the flow that we have been waiting for them to hit for a while. And there were some good moments against EMU. I think you're going to see some good moments this Saturday against South Carolina, and it starts with the running game. The second reason here, South Carolina, unlike Kentucky, I don't think is going to be able to sustain drives. Now, they may hit some plays. They may have Lenore Sellers do some things, but they're not going to be able to consistently sustain drives as effectively as Kentucky is going to in this game. It starts with the ground game for Kentucky, and I really do think for South Carolina, it starts with the passing attack because they just cannot seem to get Lenore Sellers going. Been really inconsistent at various points. They looked weird against Virginia Tech, obviously better against Missouri, but still had some odd moments. Here's the kicker. South Carolina is down 2 offensive linemen. They're down their right tackle, and I believe they're also down their center. They are down 2 offensive linemen heading into this game. USC heading into this one was already allowing 3.25 sacks per game. 125th nationally in that stat. 3.25 sacks per game. Kentucky is going to send pressure, and they are not going to be able to stop it. Kentucky's going to get home. They're going to stop drives. They're going to put South Carolina in 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations. If they try and throw the ball on us consistently, it's not going to be a consistent offensive performance from South Carolina. Now, sure, they may get 21 points. They might get 24 points. It's not going to be enough. They're not going to be able to sustain their drives throughout the course of this game. By the way, in case you're wondering, Kentucky's only allowing a sack a game so far this year, 17th nationally. And they've already played Ole Miss. And South Carolina, again, they're down 2 offensive linemen. I really do think Kentucky's going to win this game in the trenches and playing their brand of, I almost said basketball, playing their brand of football. Final thing here. I think Kentucky's got a clear advantage on 3rd down. The Wildcats have a conversion rate of almost 43%. That's top 40 in the country. They've been pretty effective there, which is shocking. They've been able to get some things into third and easy, 3rd and manageable. And I think, again, because of the rushing attack, Kentucky's going to be able to find themselves in those 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s quite often in this one. And on the other side, South Carolina has actually struggled pretty badly to get off the field. They're allowing almost 49% 3rd down rate for their opponents, which is 115th nationally. They've stunk on 3rd down. They've stunk protecting their quarterback, and they've stunk preventing rushing yards from the opponent. All of this points to Kentucky getting the exact game plan that they want in this one. Kentucky's going to, again, sustain things. control time of possession, score 24 plus, and then get out of there with a win. I think Kentucky is going to not only cover, but they're going to win outright this weekend against South Carolina in Columbia. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.